love it. I love it.
Really?
Love can empower a woman, but not as much as hate.
This was a woman who was going to blow.
When an English rose loses her royal connections, someone will pay.
All of a sudden, her dreams begin to disintegrate.
A spurned wife derails her husband's new life.
She became obsessed with him, stalking him.
And nothing will stop this first love.
It was intentional, it was deliberate. It was something, you know, with feeling.
These deadly women all seek a lover's revenge. Buckingham Palace, the ultimate symbol of England's pomp and ceremony, home to Britain's kings and queens. Only a few privileged outsiders get to know life inside these hallowed halls.
Hey, Sal.
Yeah.
Working-class girl Jane Andrews will be one of the lucky ones. In 1988, the shop assistant answers an intriguing ad in a magazine.
But it's got to be someone wealthy. I mean, it's not just anyone that puts an ad in the Lady, is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to go for it.
The job is beyond Jane's wildest dreams. Working for the Queen's daughter-in-law, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson.
All of a sudden, Jane was being allowed to walk down the corridors of Buckingham Palace and other great houses to go with Sarah Ferguson wherever she went. She allowed Jane Andrews to become a central part of her life. And as a result of that, of course, Jane Andrews could move in circles that she would never dreamt of. She went to the best parties. She met famous people. She earned a good living.
Rubbing shoulders with England's elite, Jane meets her own Prince Charming.
Jane Andrews.
Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
You look absolutely ravishing.
The wealthy stepson of a Greek shipping magnate. But Dimitri doesn't know what he is in for.
The picture we found there was actually very disturbing, that she had a propensity for manipulation, used violence on a number of occasions, certainly stalking behaviour, could be very foul-mouthed.
She was extremely dramatic, extremely manipulative.
I'm a dresser.
Ah, yes, the Duchess of York.
You've done your research.
Most certainly, ma'am.
This was a woman who was always on the edge.
Jane sees rich men as her ticket to the high life.
Jane wasn't so much looking for love as she was looking for financial security, a big, fat wallet.
This lovely music. Would you like to join me as well?
Well, I'd be inclined to say yes.
Let's do that then.
She's been described variously in the media as a bit of a gold digger. She had airs and graces above her station.
It's been great, really, it has.
It doesn't
This
take
just isn't
long before Dimitri
to England,
sees
this is going
Jane's
separate
dark
ways, yes?
side.
What do you mean it's not working out?
Exactly that. It's not working out. Exactly.
This is a woman that pushed. She always wanted more. So she always wanted more time. She always wanted more affection. She always wanted more money, being taken out to better restaurants.
Are you leaving me?
Being dumped by her lover brings out the worst in Jane.
Leave me, you bastard!
Goodness sakes, you're making this
She
very
no longer acts like a lady.
It's ridiculous! I'll show you ridiculous!
You know what? You're making this incredibly easy, okay? I'm leaving now. Thank you.
You can't
Thank
leave me!
you.
You're a bastard!
She couldn't stand rejection.
I'll show you!
When he rejected her, she ripped up his clothes and stole a cheque from his chequebook.
The world he brought to her, the wealth, the parties, the important rich people, it would all be gone. If a guy comes home and finds that his suits and shirts have all been slashed to pieces, I'd head for the airport.
Dmitri escapes. But the next man won't be so lucky. Desperate not to lose her entry into high society, Jane soon finds a replacement.
Tom, what do you do?
Tom
What kind of
Cressman.
things are you into?
Fast cars, boats.
Yes.
He
Fast
comes from a
cars.
rich family
Tell more.
and is a successful businessman in
I
his
run a
own
business.
right.
Yes.
I met Mr. Cressman a couple of times. He was quite an interesting personality. He ticked a lot of Jane's boxes. He was good looking, he had wealth, he had a good taste, beautiful cars, lovely flats, well furnished, and he had that sort of authority with him that she liked. She always thought to herself, what can I get from this person?
Jane has had a taste of life at the top, and she wants to stay there, whatever the cost.
The match between Tom Cressman and Jane Andrews was made somewhere other than heaven.
And here I am.
Tell more.
No, you tell more. Tell me more about the cars.
Any man that got involved in a relationship with her would either be very brave or he's got a death wish.
'90s, London, England.
There's an ad in here for a person.
A working-class girl answers an ad in a magazine and ends up working for the royal family. Jane Andrews not only walks the corridors of Buckingham Palace, but has a wealthy high society boyfriend.
Her relationships had a sort of central core about them, and it was always about what more can you as a man give me?
And generally the sort of people she would have affairs with or relationships with would have been people of high net worth, people with some influence.
Tom, I'm serious. I'm giving you an ultimatum of 6 months until you have to propose to me.
Her future seems assured. All she needs is a marriage proposal.
Can't we talk about this on the hops? Yeah. Come on.
On the holidays.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, as long as we do discuss it.
Okay, come on.
But things take a turn for the worse. Jane gets fired by the Duchess.
Sarah Ferguson probably thought that Jane Andrews was getting a little bit above herself, and it became a convenient excuse for her to cite money troubles to let this woman go.
The official reason was downscaling.
I think Jane may have been way, way out of her league working for the royal family with such a demanding job. The stress must have been enormous.
For a woman who can't cope with rejection, it is a crippling blow.
Her losing her job to Sarah Ferguson basically set her off. This was a woman who had a job for life, earning good money. All of a sudden, she's cast out. She takes a PR job, she fails at that. She then becomes a shop assistant.
Her rags to royalty story is over. Jane is back at the shop front.
Do you know, Tom, I love you.
Now her only hope of keeping up appearances is Tom.
Tom Cressman is her way out, her meal ticket.
So I love you too.
That's it. Is that all I get?
From the
She always pressurised men. She always pushed them into a situation where they would walk out on her.
Tom went away for a weekend where he met another woman. Shortly thereafter, Jane found emails that he had sent that woman describing the old girlfriend similar to an old pair of slippers. Nice to have around, but didn't really want her. This devastated Jane.
And all of a sudden, her dreams begin to disintegrate. Not only has she lost the job with Sarah Ferguson, she's now losing the man she loves. And that is the beginning of the end for her.
I think he was very worried by some of Jane's possessive behaviour, and I think he was thinking, do I want to have this for the rest of my life?
A letter Tom has hidden in the closet confirms there will be no wedding.
He wrote a letter. I do love you, but you're a bit too intense. I need time, I need space, I need to think about it. I'm not ready to make a commitment to you.
The moment it became apparent that he wouldn't marry her, Mr. Cresman was fair game. And that's the trouble with Jane Andrews, is that there is no end to that emotional spectrum. She loved him, she hated him.
Tom! Tom! What's this letter I just found? Did you write it? Is it true?
There was a confrontation. Tom told Jane he had no intention of marrying her.
I need time, I need space to think.
Oh, I'll give you all the space you need!
Jane and Tom got into a terrible fight.
Yes, we're having a row.
Tom called the police and told them if somebody didn't come over and stop the fighting, that one of them was going to be hurt.
You can see where this was going. Increasing rows, more bitterness, more anger. And this was a woman who was going to blow.
The police never come. And Tom will never see daylight again.
She came into the room. She hit him across the head. There was an indentation on his forehead. That would clearly, at the very least, have stunned him.
I think Jane hit Tom in the head first because she wanted to make sure he could not fight back.
She took an 8-inch kitchen knife and stabbed him through the chest, and it hit the left ventricle, which caused massive internal bleeding. He basically bled to death.
Jane may have thought of killing Tom before this horrible night, but it really came into focus for her when he completely rejected her. At least that's what she felt. And she ended the pain, and she made him pay.
Jane flees and sends bizarre text messages to her rich and royal friends.
Sends text to various people, including the Duchess of York, stating that Tom had been murdered by somebody else, and she was surprised by it all. Now, you know, that's her first reaction. That shows a very manipulative and calculating person.
There's enough evidence to make Jane the prime suspect. Police track her cell phone and 2 days later arrest her. Jane's defense is that she's the victim. Tom attacked her.
She murdered him in life, and she murdered him again in death by trying to destroy his reputation. Tom was, in fact, Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury clearly believed the prosecution story because we had amassed so much evidence.
In 2001, Jane is sentenced to life in prison. She's eligible for parole in 2012.
If she had shown remorse at the earliest opportunity, had admitted her guilt, she probably would look in manslaughter and probably got 5 or 6 years.
I don't think Jane is a born killer. I think there was a sequence of events in her life that led her to staying in a bad relationship and then ending that relationship badly.
When a marriage becomes violent, the victim isn't always the wife.
Nothing Greg could do could make Shayna happy.
But who will protect a frightened man?
She could not control her temper.
The unusual, violent nature of this was something that he just didn't see coming.
Rigby, Idaho, 2000.
Hey, kids!
Greg Whitmore appears to be a lucky man in more ways than one.
You're welcome. There you go. Come on, Greg. Give her some.
A soldier, he survives the first Gulf War and returns home to start a new life with his sweetheart, Shanna Parkinson. The couple is blessed with a son and a daughter.
I got another one here for you. There you go. Make sure you eat it, okay?
Greg was a very easygoing guy, loved his kids, and real family-oriented type of a person.
But the happy times don't last. Greg is married to a troubled woman.
It appears to me that Shayna had more than one untreated and possibly undiagnosed mental disorder.
Without any professional help, Shanna self-medicates. She steals prescriptions and drinks heavily.
Taking excessive amounts of alcohol and sedatives would only make that condition worse. She also had an uncontrollable temper.
There is one target for her dark moods, her husband.
What the hell, Ben?
Good work.
Don't you lie to me!
She would lash out violently at Greg repeatedly. Nothing Greg could do could make her happy.
Keep your hands off me!
She could not control her temper.
Shanna's behavior was very bizarre, very strange. She was someone who was very difficult to figure out what was going on inside her head.
Greg hides their marital problems, fearing no one will understand. A man being the victim of domestic violence.
What do you want me to do? If I hit her, I'm the bad guy.
But when the beatings get worse, Greg confides to his friends.
The whole issue of men who are battered by wives instead of wives who are battered by husbands, that was an underlying issue.
I think whoever Shayna might have married would have been subjected to her wrath, her irrational behavior, and her problems. Greg just happened to be the one that got it.
By 2002, Greg, who bravely fought in the first Gulf War, can't take the violence in his own home anymore.
Gonna walk out the kids, are ya?
He moves out. After being in control of Greg and their marriage for almost a decade, Shanna isn't willing to let go.
She was really into drama and hate. I think her hatred for Greg grew because he rejected her.
Greg's hope that leaving home will end the violence will soon be shattered.
When Greg rejected Shayna and wanted a divorce, It was more than she could handle. She went nuts.
Rigby, Idaho. A perfect marriage deteriorates into spousal abuse. But Shanna Parkinson isn't the victim. She's the attacker, emotionally unstable and doped up on pills and alcohol. She beats her husband, Greg. Fed up with the abuse, he moves out.
She didn't want to give up, didn't want to let go of things that she was holding on to from that marriage.
I love it. I love it.
In 2003, Greg is divorced and free to find love again with 29-year-old beauty Karen Cummings. Not everyone is happy.
Greg and Karen met. That obviously stirred up further emotions in Shanna. It further exasperated the situation.
Insane with jealousy, Shanna stalks her ex-husband and his lover.
Asshole! She became obsessed with him, stalking him, calling him telephone stalking. Sometimes a couple of hundred calls a day, no matter where he was.
Far out.
Oh my God! Greg, she's outside!
She was essentially in a situation where she just didn't want to let go.
Her behavior becomes more obsessive and dangerous.
What the hell is she doing?
Jesus.
She'd lash out violently. She could not control her temper.
Shanna had already shown signs of using Greg before he met Karen.
We're calling the cops! We're gonna go get her! You were right. She's nuts.
The children still live with Shanna, but Greg is worried about their safety and attempts to gain custody. Greg's bid to protect his family only adds fuel to the fire. Shanna breaks into Greg's home and steals everything precious to him.
When she got all of Greg's possessions together, including his prized trophies and a picture of his mother, and burned them, she was symbolically killing Greg.
It's common to have custody battles and so forth, but this was one that was taken to the extreme.
Just days later, on February 1st, 2004, Shanna pays Greg another unexpected visit.
Don't you two look cozy?
How'd you get here?
Shanna snapped, lost total control of something that had been building up, and stabbed Greg multiple times.
When women are motivated to kill based on revenge or jealousy, oftentimes we see that they fly into a rage, and the rage becomes uncontrollable. They don't stop stabbing until they feel like it, until they've run out of steam. Greg was stabbed around 30 times, his girlfriend 13 times. It's clear the target of the attack was Greg. Whoever went after him totally hated him.
Shanna thinks they are alone in the house. But they are not. There is a tiny and terrified eyewitness.
Karen had a 5-year-old daughter who witnessed the murder from another room.
The little girl tries to help her mom the only way she can. She bravely calls 911.
Very emotional to hear the frightened call of a 5 or 6-year-old girl telling the dispatcher that she'd just seen her mother murdered. When police got to the house, it was just described again and again, and just in terms of being a bloody, grisly murder scene.
If I was called in to do a profile and I have a man and woman murdered in their bed, he's got 30 stab wounds and she's got 13, the first thing I tell the police is look for a former wife, girlfriend, or lover as the killer.
Within hours, 911 receives another call. It's the killer.
Police said she was very confused and incoherent. She was in a very disoriented state of mind.
Could you please step out of the car?
Shanna is found several miles away in a neighboring county.
Are you hurt?
No.
Ma'am, you're covered in blood.
Evidence literally dripping from her.
I don't know what happened.
Why don't you come with me? Just come with me and go straight.
Shayna Parkinson had so many mental, behavioral, and emotional problems. It doesn't surprise me that it culminated in murder.
With indisputable forensic evidence, Shanna Parkinson is found guilty of murder. In August 2004, she is sentenced to life with a minimum of 27 years.
Any man can be in a marriage with disagreements or fights, but I think the unusual, violent nature of this was something that he just didn't see coming.
This is one of those sad cases where the perpetrator needs to be taken away from society forever, so the rest of us are safe. She needs to remain incarcerated for the rest of her life.
If we get gas, we won't have enough for food.
3 a.m., September 28, 2008. In Yankton, South Dakota, 3 teenagers, all under the legal age, are pulled over for a random police check.
I'll do the talking, just stay calm.
They're almost 800 miles from home and are acting strangely.
Is there a problem, officer?
What are you doing out here so late?
Just heading home.
Where's home?
Just up ahead.
How do you explain the Texas plates?
It was a suspicious time for them to be, and they're in Texas plates, etc.
You got an answer?
The kids were all acting nervous, and their stories weren't matching up.
The suspicious officer detains them on a minor violation.
Step out of the vehicle.
Breaking curfew. But soon, 2 of them will be behind bars on the most serious offense of all, murder.
Jennifer and Paul did not think this crime out very well.
early 2008, Roanoke, Texas. Hard-working mom, Susan Bailey, juggles 2 jobs to give her children the best.
This was a working mother who had gone through a divorce but still had a home, raised her 2 kids the best she could. Made sure they got to school, made sure they had the things that they wanted and needed, and was, for all purposes, a very caring, loving mother.
Recently divorced, Susan relies on her 17-year-old daughter, Jennifer, to help look after her younger brother.
Kids were alone a lot, but Jennifer was old enough to watch after David, so they just hung out at the house by themselves a lot. She was, you know, for the better part, just a good kid. You know, she went to school and she did her chores and she went to work and she did what she was supposed to do. And her grades were always good.
Neighbor Michelle Davidson says Jennifer was well-behaved, but not a typical teen.
She didn't have a lot of friends. She just didn't fit in at school. Quiet, kept to herself. I'd watch her walk home from school, reading a book all by herself. Just a really quiet girl.
A chance encounter changes Jennifer's world forever. She's never met anyone like 16-year-old Paul Henson.
Paul was, I guess, what we refer to as goth.
When darkness falls and the moon reaches its apex, the channel will be complete.
He felt like he was a master manipulator. And he convinced all these people around him that he was some sort of warlock.
Be with us, Jennifer.
The modern-day pagan believes he has mystical powers.
Teenagers are sometimes drawn to counterculture things that they almost know will upset their parents.
Jennifer is smitten and believes every word Paul says.
Past life, I loved you. And in a future life, I will love you again.
Jennifer's mind was a fertile breeding ground to be influenced by someone like Paul.
They can tear us apart in this life, but they can't destroy our love.
Jennifer got into worshiping witches and warlocks and basically dabbling with the devil.
Paul believes in reincarnation and convinces Jennifer they have been lovers in a past life.
That's beautiful. You think so? I wrote it for you.
And can be lovers for many lives to come.
In order for them to be together in a future life, which they expected to have, that they had to remain together.
But there is an obstacle in the way. Susan Bailey.
Mom, do you mind?
She tries to stop her daughter from seeing him.
Some kind of play. Come on, let's go.
Susan was trying to protect her daughter from someone that she saw as bad for her. Susan did not think Paul was right for her daughter. Susan was right about that.
But Susan has no power. Jennifer is already under Paul's spell.
If Jennifer had met the right guy, she would have been influenced possibly to go to college and be a doctor. She met the wrong guy.
A mom and daughter's close relationship is over. Jennifer now considers her an enemy.
Jennifer, I asked you to come and sit at the table. No, get out.
From, you know, the start of dating him, she was defiant and really turned a complete 180 in her personality. She didn't get away. She was yelling and screaming and completely opposite of what she used to be. Mousy, never said a word.
I know you're upset with me, but I want you to understand I'm not trying to hurt you. No, you don't get it, Mom.
She was completely out of control.
Jennifer and Paul want to stay together without any interference. Susan Bailey will soon be a victim of lovers' revenge. Roanoke, Texas, 2008. 17-year-old Jennifer Bailey has fallen under the spell of her first love. 16-year-old Paul Henson, a 21st century wannabe warlock. Jennifer's mother, Susan, bans her daughter from seeing Paul.
Her mom had thought that they had broken up. She had forbid her from seeing him. And the police came to their house and were looking for Paul Henson. He was reported as a runaway. And her mom did not think he was there and was surprised to find his belongings at her house.
Where are you going? With him. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're staying here with me. You're not going. Let go of me. Let go of me. Get out of my house. Go. What are you doing? If you come back again, I'm going to get the police on you. You don't have to go anywhere with that boy. I hate you.
She saw the red flags and thought that she had successfully broken them up and that she had kept Jennifer away from Paul.
We have to do this tonight.
Furious with her mother for trying to keep them apart, Jennifer plans to steal the family car and run away to Canada.
Those things I wrote, I wasn't making them up. Are you ready to meet your destiny?
Before their long trip, the teens plan a farewell, fueled by revenge.
She didn't like to live by her mother's rules and decided that the best way to have what she wanted would be to kill her mother and run off with Paul.
It was intentional, it was deliberate. That's the scariest part.
She was stabbed 27 times in the neck, almost decapitating her. This was a brutal, vicious attack that was intended to be violent, intended to shock.
Slit her throat.
Intended to vent rage.
"43-year-old Susan Bailey dies at the hands of her own daughter.
The cold-blooded killer of her mother. The one person who brought her into this world, who cared for her, and that, to me, is just horrific.
Let's get out of here.
There are words to describe what Jennifer did. Going to the dark side and brutally murdering her mother, and then showing no remorse whatsoever. And the words are natural-born killer.
Free of her mom, Jennifer and Paul set out for their new life, taking an innocent child with them.
Jennifer's little brother eventually got drawn into the plan. I'm guessing by Paul and Jennifer. He was, as I see it, nothing more than a tag-along.
That was the heart-wrencher. That was the bigger shocker, that he had possibly anything to do with it, which, you know, he followed Jennifer around, you know, whatever she did, he followed behind. And if she was going somewhere, he wanted to go too.
Gas. If we don't get food. It's okay, I'll do the talking, just stay calm.
There is no magical ending for Jennifer's dream of eternal love. It's over before it begins.
Is there a problem, officer?
What are you doing out here so late?
Just heading home.
Paul and Jennifer in Susan's vehicle.
So how do you explain the Texas plates?
They were in South Dakota,
You got an answer?
and they were pulled over. They were very young and suspicious.
When South Dakota police contact colleagues in Jennifer's hometown, the mindless plot unravels.
All of you, out.
This crime was solved very quickly because of good police work, and Jennifer and Paul thought they could literally kill her mother in a brutal way, take off in a car, and go to another country and live happily ever after. That doesn't happen, especially when there's murder in the mix.
In 2009, both teenagers stand trial.
I'd really thought about going, and then I thought, no, I really can't look at her in the eye. I read what went on. Every additional piece of information was just horrifying, just to find out more and more of, what happened and how premeditated it was.
The one-time lovers are now enemies. They blame each other for the brutal murder.
During the court proceedings, it's their opportunity to finger point at each other, and that's exactly what they did.
In the end, they accept plea bargains and admit killing Susan Bailey.
She never really took any kind of full responsibility or felt any kind of remorse.
Both escape the death penalty and are sentenced to 60 years behind bars. Jennifer Bailey will be eligible for parole in 2039.
It's hard to feel anything for her. She's just like a smudge on this city.
First loves are supposed to be exciting and fun and sweet and a normal part of growing up. But they can turn deadly if the wrong two kids fall in love. I'm guessing Jennifer will never forget her first.
These women once loved and cared for those they murdered. Jane Andrews craved high society, but killed her Prince Charming. Shanna Parkinson wanted her husband dead, not happy. And Jennifer Bailey turned on her mother in the name of love. These deadly women couldn't take no for an answer. Nothing could stop their lover's revenge. When a woman has the ideal life and the perfect man,
Do you know, Tom, I love you.
He ticked a lot of Jane's boxes. He was good looking. He had wealth.
the fear of losing both,
The parties, the important rich people, it would all be gone.
can be explosive.
She couldn't stand rejection. She was trying to elevate herself from being from a relatively working class family in Grimsby up to mixing with the royal family, mixing with millionaires, people of high net worth, and trying to elevate herself into a social arena that perhaps someone from her background is not used to. Had a good education and business acumen. He used to sell car covers for historic cars, you know, for old-fashioned sports cars, of which he had a number himself. Had a Alfa Romeo Spider 1963 and 7 or 8 other, you know, what I would call historic, good quality cars. So he was into, I suppose you would term it, boys' toys. And, you know, clearly very successful at it, very good businessman. Probably, had he lived, he probably would have gone on to become a millionaire.
Not only did Jane stab him, on the way out, she tied the door shut so he could not escape. She wanted to make sure he was dead.
We directed the local police to a location, and they found her slumped, sort of semi-conscious in her car, in the lay-by. She got arrested, nominally arrested, bearing in mind she'd taken an overdose. And, you know, one thing I say to people, if you're going to kill yourself and you mean to kill yourself, you don't take paracetamol.
She painted him as a man who was into kinky sex, dressing up, other forms, and that she'd been abused over a number of months, and that it culminated in him attacking her that night and her defending herself. She said she can't really remember the specific details of it, but she had the knife and he must have fallen on it. Well, this had it all, didn't it? It had the royal family. It had, you know, an attractive woman. It had sex in it. It had wealth. You know, it could have been an Agatha Christie story. In court, you know, Jane Andrews put on an act. I mean, it could have been Meryl Streep in that box, not Jane Andrews. She was dressed all in black. She looked cowed. She looked down, very rarely looked at the judge, very rarely looked at the jury. This was a woman who was a victim, and that's the role that she played for a number of days.
Friends that knew them described their relationship as a couple that went from being very devoted to each other to hateful spite. Women kill boyfriends, lovers, husbands, ex-husbands for a variety of reasons. One of the most common is they feel entitled to do it. You're leaving me? You've upset my world. I get to kill you.
I'll go check the other rooms.
Jennifer Bailey leaves evidence scattered throughout the house.
They then discovered a baseball bat in Jennifer's room, laying on her bed. They also found 4 knives under couch cushions and an orange extension cord hanging from the shower curtain down into the bathtub. I think they had different plans of the way they were gonna kill her.
The knives being stashed around the house makes what Jennifer did scary and pathological. That's terrifying.
Susan's mother gave her victim impact statement, and this was her granddaughter. You know, so there's still huge emotional family ties there. It puts her in a very awkward position because she's lost her daughter at the hands of her granddaughter. But Jennifer remained stoic even through that.
She's just put a big black mark on us. So I can't say that she'd be thought of fondly.